All right, so this will be our fourth session for today, and out of six sessions. And a couple of months ago, we already hosted the topic about making blockchain data AI native with Karel Balogh. And this time, this will be some kind of continuation of the previous webinar workshop style event that you can find on our We Are community webpage and on our social media channels. And I'm very happy to invite our guest speaker, Karel. Hello, I see you on the stage.
Yes, hello, everyone.
Yeah, thanks a lot for joining. And before we start, could you please just tell a couple of words about yourself and about the topic that you brought? What will be different from the previous amazing webinar that we hosted back then for 1.5 or 2 hours, if I'm not mistaken?
Yes, thank you, appreciate it. So yeah, my name is, as you mentioned, Karel Balogh. I am one of the guys that lead product at SQD, and SQD is an on-chain data layer in the crypto space. So I will speak more about it during my presentation, but I want to give in this 30 minutes like a really, I think, good overview how how things worked before, how things work now, and how things data-wise and AI-wise will work in the future.
Yeah, and back then we hosted some kind of hands-on workshop. So if anyone is interested, I can drop the link in the live chat. There in that workshop, Carol showed everything from scratch, from zero to having that working on the screen. So without further ado, I am bringing the presentation on the screen, and we can see it well. So the stage is yours. Good luck, Carol.
All right, amazing. So as I mentioned, my name is Karel, and I'm a product lead at SQD, and I'm here to talk about a strange contradiction. Blockchain data is the most open data in the world, or one of the most open data sets in the world, and it's still surprisingly hard to use, and especially for machines. Until very recently, it was nearly impossible to use well. So today I want to show you what it means to fix that, not for the next dashboard or creating new API or creating some cool chart, but for crypto or world in general, where the main consumer of the data is an AI agent. So, as I said, on-chain data has been open for years. Every transaction, every transfer, every liquidation has been out there. It's been public. It's the one of the traits of blockchains, and yet being open or out there is not the same as usable. By usable, I mean it's not really easy to work with. And I have like a simple test for you right at the beginning, and I want you to, it's like a mental, I guess, test or like thinking just for a few seconds. I want you to like think about it deeply. So like if you wanted to retrieve data such as how much USDC has been moved on Base or Monad on Hyperliquid in the last hour, how would you actually do it? Like, feel free to drop in the chat some of your guesses, and we can discuss it at the end of the presentation. But I want you to really like think how would you go around it if you ever worked with blockchain data, because it's honestly such a simple question, yet it's not as trivial as it sounds, right? So an explorer will show you transactions, but it won't give you the data. It won't sum it for you. RPC node makes you walk the journey block by block, right? Some of them are more optimized, some of them are less optimized, but doesn't matter. A dashboard that someone built will only answer. It may answer my question, but it also may not, because the dashboard is built by someone that built it for specific to answer specific question. And there are also commercial API providers who could answer it, but they are closed source and usually behind the paywall. And before you get this single number, you have to discover that they even have the data. And it's not as trivial as it sounds. Sign up, get a key, start paying, or start a subscription, free trial, whatever. But the discover itself is the friction in the journey, or at least that's how I view it. So anyone can read a chain, but almost no one, including the machines, until until recently can read it easily. So the gap between a question, as I just asked you, and forming an answer is the subject of my talk, let's say. So the story has, I guess, three parts, or how I look at it. So before, I guess until 2019, the crypto data engineering looked like that every team built own pipelines. Everyone ran their own nodes, created their own hands-on indexers. You had to glue the code, meaning that you had to tie the logic to each protocol. To each chain's logic. It was just very, let's say, custom and very hard. The barrier to entry was insane, and the knowledge, you had to had the knowledge, which was maybe the biggest barrier. From 2019, and I want to give credit to one of our competitors, the OG, the Graph. When they started, they made indexing. They created something called subgraphs. They created a way how to share the data via API through subgraphs, and people could then use those subgraphs to create their own hosted APIs. But still, all of this was built by humans for humans. I won't go into details for the graph, but generally speaking, with keys and quotas. And that's the middle part. And on the right, how I view it. So starting 2026 and going forward, agents will be able to query the data directly, and they are treated as first-class consumers. And yeah, let me explain what I mean. So in 2016, let's say 2017, if you wanted to build whatever using crypto data, you had to build almost like a factory. So you had to run your own node or pay someone to run the node. You had to sync the archive node per chain. That's I will put emphasis per chain, because it wasn't trivial back then to do multi-chain indexing. You had to babysit it, so you had to like actually see that the data is syncing correctly. And I'm not even speaking about data validation or data quality, because you were taking the data usually just from one node and you were just purely believing that it's correct. You had to then pay storage, and then you wrote some glued indexer, decode raw logs into something queryable, and you had to rehandle every reorg, every edge case by hand. And then sort of an API, send up a database, put an API, so the front end could work with it. And then the hardest part, I guess, keep it alive, maintain it. And then how I emphasize it per chain. So you had to do it, let's say you want to do it again. You had to do it exactly again for the another chain. You had to learn the traits of the chain, how it works, logic, etc. Really not that trivial, and that's why not that many companies or people did it. And that's why even back then, even now, people can charge quite a lot of money for setting up blockchain data pipelines. So indexing in general was a specialist craft. I put here on the slide that it took weeks, but it usually took even months. And I'm not speaking about the dollar cost, the how much it actually costs. And in my opinion, if you wanted to create anything back then, you had to pay tens of thousands of dollars just for the data part, because, as I said, the knowledge was the biggest barrier. Not that many people could do it well, and secondly, you had to pay for the infra. So I just want you to think about how kind of absurd, right, that is, or that was, that the data was technically open. As I said, it was out there. It was locked behind both money effort, right? So you had to have you simply had to have money to do that, and behind engineering effort. So public data, yet it was almost I would claim even private, because the bar, as once again, barrier to entry was significant. So there were, if you look back, there were so many companies that don't exist nowadays, or they shrinked significantly, that existed just to answer questions regarding the chains. And then then things got slightly better. Data went open, but still it got opened for humans. So what I mean by it, some of you may have used explorers, right? There is great business um, around running blockchain explorers. Some companies have made, I would even claim, millions by it, right? But still, explorers are built for humans, not for machines. Dashboards, the same, hosted APIs. It was genuine process, but yeah, over time the chain became browsable. But once again, block explorers built to be looked at, dashboards built to be looked at by eyes, right, by humans. Hosted APIs come with keys, quotas, sign-up forms, and they were built for devs, humans, to use, right? So every one of these assumes that a person will use them, not a machine, but a person. So the chain became browsable, as I said, great due to the graph, others that paved the way, and it's also one of the reasons why our company even got started. So I already mentioned a bit, but there are several fractions, right? So as I mentioned, along the journey, friction, by friction I mean something that will make the journey uh, less comfortable, or will just make you stop, right? So API keys, as I said, most of the API providers are behind paywalls, and even nowadays most of them are. It's almost impossible without paying first to even use them. In my opinion, insane. So you have to sign up, then you have to create a secret. There is some rate limit, and maybe per query billing, right? It's just some cost that, like, the more you wanna actually like use the open data, right? The more you have to pay for. So exploration almost impossible in my opinion, as long as you are, of course, as you don't have the knowledge, right, to do it in alternative way. So, and once again, if I'm speaking still like how it's right now, if engineers want to index any data, usually if they build it in-house, they need to build adapters. And that's, for example, how DeFi Llama has one folder in their main repos just about adapters, because you need to build adapters for each protocols, because each protocol acts differently. They for example, they have different logic, how they, I don't know, like how they even define revenues, right, fees, etc. So people had to build adapters, and yeah, that's just something that slows the process. We do it, and in my opinion, agents can do it, but agents shouldn't do it, and there should be a better way. So while we were all busy tolerating all of this because there was simply not a better way, something changed. The users of blockchain data changed before the infra did. So that's kind of transition to my next slide. So in my opinion, the fastest growing consumer of on-chain data is not a person, a screen, not me or you. It's software, it's a machine, agent, whatever naming you want to put out there, but it's that. So querying, deciding, acting on your own. And the uncomfortable truth is that you cannot even count them properly or recognize them most of the times. So we went and looked actually at our agent traffic on our own portal solution, and the honest answer is that we couldn't fully separate it at the moment. We will be able in the future, but at the moment it's quite hard for us. So because an agent doesn't announce itself, right? Hey, I'm an agent, I want blockchain data. It just acts as a normal dev would do, right? It just shows up in the logs. a plain curl command. And of course, there are ways how to differentiate it, but at the moment, it's still quite hard. And one of those agents, funny story from our internal testing, is that it went even further and it decided that the example clients are not good enough that we have, and wrote itself a Rust client against our API. And the only reason why I even know about it, the story came from our CEO and one of the agents that our CTO and one of the agents that he used. So the new consumer of the data doesn't fill out the forms, right? Doesn't say from where he is, doesn't say what hobbies he has, right? Doesn't say from which university he is. It doesn't even it skims through the landing page, but it doesn't really read it. It doesn't introduce itself. But it's already there, and that's my point, is that if you think that it's not here yet, it already is, and it's already in quite some big margin, and I will talk about it a bit later during my presentation. So what I want to say is that, of course, what I'm showing here is only examples from the last week, but these are real screenshots, and I just want to prove with these screenshots that it's not just me saying here, hey, it's out there, pay attention, right? Because if it was just me screaming out loud and saying, hey, it's out there, it's not a movement, it's not a transitional shift, it would be just me screaming out there, right? But all of the companies out there in our industry that I've personally researched and looked at, they are all moving in that direction, and that tells me that that's a real shift. That's not just me being siloed here or us being siloed here, but it's a real shift. So, for example, QuickNote deleted recently in the past week the sign-up form. They have 1 million free requests a month per agent, paid in stablecoins over X402. So no account, no API key. And why? Because I will not judge it if it's a marketing stunt or a real product direction, but they believe that their new customer cannot read it or shouldn't read the sign-up form and will not. By the way, all detail about 402 is it's quite funny that it was actually named after HTTP status, code 402, and payment required. And the web preserved the code since, I believe, 30 years ago, and it got never used. But now it finally has a job, and the first paying customers are machines paying with crypto. So following on the slide, we have also the graph, and they are quoting that the agentic web changes who consumes blockchain data and raises the stakes for getting it right. Their words, not mine. And on the right side, you can see Alchemy documentation, and I want you to just pay attention who actually commits in the repo. It's called Docs Agent Alchemic Bot. So it's all authored with Claude, right, or Cursor or whoever, but it's already built humans, right, supervising, but by agents for agents, and that's I think that's where most of the industry or companies will end up doing similar thing. We are doing it internal as well. So and yeah, so with that being said, everyone agrees on who the new customer is. Agents, machines, agents, Claude, Codex, whoever. It's all in the same bucket. And now the question is what this bucket of users, what they actually need for them to live properly, function properly. So what's actually like definition of being AI native, right? It's also in my presentation title, making blockchain data AI native. So being AI native, and here is my definition, and I will just read it precisely. AI native means rebuilding the data layer. So an agent is a first-class consumer and with same access as a person with none of the setup. And the second sentence is where I guess where the actions will will go in the future. So you don't only build for developer, but you need to have such clear boundaries and such clear instructions so that both the agent and the dev will understand it. So the default consumer is a machine, and the human overview still will be there, but you need to build by default you need to build for agents, so they understand first, and then if they don't, humans can be looped in. But that's the major shift in thinking progress. So it needs to be designed for the strictest reader. All these sources of single sources of truth, docs, websites, it needs to be so strict that agents cannot just derail, but just continue the journey. So currently, that definition that I just said reduces to 3 requirements, or that's how we are thinking about it. So one is having one endpoint for every chain. So agent shouldn't learn a new integration per network. As I said, it just doesn't make sense to have adapters for everything, because like where's the limit? Like how many adapters you need? 100, 200, 2000, 2 million? Like I really don't know. It doesn't make sense, and that's why agents shouldn't limit it. Two, is one of the most I guess skipped steps in the data industry. That's how I'm thinking about it, is that people just blindly, or companies blindly, believe that their data is correct. But in most cases, or that's in our benchmarks, internal benchmarks, it's simply not the case. We are going beyond and above regarding data validation, data quality, and based on our internal benchmarks, most of our other competitors, they are not. They simply claim that their data is there, right? But then they don't recheck, or they don't even validate while ingesting that is correct. And the reason why I'm speaking about it is that agents need to have source of truth. Agents need to have quality data to work with. If they will not have it, the outputs will of course be skewed, be incorrect. And the third point on the slide is they need low friction or no friction to start. So by that I mean no confusion at the beginning, not gluing some parts of code, like clear pricing. If there's authentication, it needs to be super clear. It should speak to the agents with the standards. So for example, this OAuth, hope I'm pronouncing correctly, 2.1 standard for discovery and dynamic line registration. And yeah, and I think that's the bar that we should set industry-wise for going forward, so agents can work properly with blockchain data. And yeah, so what we are doing is, as I said, we are the on-chain data layer. We do have data across 200 plus networks, real-time for some of them, historical for all of them, and validated also for all of them. We have one open endpoint and built for both devs and machines. And we've spent 5 years building SQD, and for the past 2-3 years we've been building Portal, and we just released it, and that's what I'm speaking about. So I've been speaking about some of our peers, competitors, so I just want to mention where we are in the whole industry. So raw blocks, raw nodes, RPC providers are at the bottom. That's where we are retrieving the data from as well, not from one, from multiple, so we can then make sure that our data sets are correct, so we cross-check, etc. Products intelligence at the top, think of some like API providers such as for wallets like DBank, or Nansen for intelligence, etc. And in between you got the index data, so such as from the graph or Gold Sky, and then we sit right below that, and as a read side layer that turns the raw blocks into queryable validated data. So, and every name on the map depends on the layer below it. So, and unlike most of this map, we are as decentralized and validated sources I mentioned, and multi-chain from day one. So as I said, with one endpoint, you can, for example, query data for Hyperliquid, for Solana, for Polkadot, for EVM chains such as Base. And with that being said, this is a real query against Base mainnet asking for USDC events. And the command on the slide is complete. Feel free to take a screenshot, give it to Claude, run it, and you will see how it works. You will, just honestly, I think the best, since I'm having not that much time left, just try it, and I think it's the best learning session. I did the same while creating the presentation this morning. So I told Claude, hey, use Portal, give me some best, I guess, demo data I could show in this presentation, and it came up with this. So on one laptop simultaneously, we had one endpoint. It got me results for 5 different VMs with same query shape. So for Ethereum, I got 16,500 ERC20 transactions in less than a third of a second. Hyperliquid, 11,864 Bitcoin perp fills in a quarter of a second. And the total of all of this, I got around 50,000 rows in 1.6 seconds of query time with 0 API keys. And I suggest show me any other solution on the market that can do that, because in my opinion there is none. And I will have just Alec, if you can just give me a few more minutes, I will just go quickly through the other slides. So as I said, everything is cool, but if it's not correct, it doesn't really matter. So there was actually one report shared 2 days ago by IC3 and also co-shared by Chainlink. That's where I discovered it, and it just came up to the same conclusion what I'm preaching here. So if there is no trust, if the data is not trusted, it doesn't really matter, and that's what we are doing. And like since the last time I had the workshop here, like things improved. So for example, in January, Portal could resolve a timestamp to a block number only for archival data. In March, I was building the MCP server. I had a gap because it couldn't give me timestamp for the last 2 hours. We resolved it in May. It worked at the live chainhead for all the data sets. So now I can go and via the MCP, I can ask, for example, give me data for the past 38 minutes for Base, or give me data on March 2018 on Ethereum. And like that's exactly some types of features that you need to build, not for humans, but especially for AI agents. So, and like I will just go quickly through this. So AI agents learn what I've been saying here through agent skills. So one command, and you can agents can then learn how query shapes work, how the logic works across all VMs. They can learn about the MCP as well, query directly over MCP, and if the queries are too large, MCP will then recommend to use a pipe, which is our new SDK, Pipes SDK, and the agent can then go and create a production indexer, as I just did actually, by the way, this morning. And I created and I retrieved over 5 million USD transfers. And my point here is that this whole talk was actually built the AI native way. So I actually asked Claude, and I used the latest model. I believe it's called Fable, and I asked it go through everything that you know about like AI tools and SQD, and try Portal, try building pipe, try using the MCP, and give me some cases, so examples that I could showcase during my presentation, and that's how I came up with everything. So the point here is that nothing was staged, and the point is, if our infrastructure wasn't AI native, the presentation could not exist. And just like two more things, which I think is just important to mention. More than half of our docs in the past 2 weeks, the traffic was agents, not people. And that's exactly like the data that if anyone was doubting that it's happening, it's here. In the past 2 weeks, our docs were read like more by agents than humans. And that's exactly why we are improving our docs, why we are improving and we got a score on the agent score. You can check the URL and see other companies how they are doing. And that's why I think it's extremely important to have really great sources of truth, so that agents can work with it well. And yeah, my point, last thing, is that on-chain data stops in 2026 being a specialist craft. People that got paid tens of thousands of dollars for building indexer, they need to do more, honestly, because everyone can now build an API. And the mode here is, or the hard part is to have the infra. So the infra that you can trust and build on. And yeah, that's my, sorry for being 5 minutes over. That's my speech. And if you want to build with us, or you're curious about anything I've been saying, just go to our docs SQD Dev, or go to our website SQD Dev, or hit me up directly via LinkedIn, Karel Balogh, and yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, we'll be sharing the links and the presentations in our Telegram chat. Thank you so much, Karel. Thanks a lot for the presentation. Really great topic and very timely nowadays. Speaking about the blockchain data, making them AI native. And unfortunately, for the sake of time, we will answer the questions in the chat in text. So yeah, if that's possible, we will be sending you all the questions over, and after that, reply all the questions to all the questions in text. And yeah, once we get the questions, we'll be reaching you out. And yeah, thanks a lot, Karel. Really happy to see you on our stage. And
thank you for inviting me, and thank you for listening. Thank you.
All right. And thank you so much. And yeah, after a very short transition, a 1-minute transition, we'll be back on stage with the next session.